Yamunāthiravānachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunāthiravānachari Yamunāthiravānachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Ashtottharasati Srimad Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to Samal devotees. All glories to Samal devotees. All glories to Samal devotees. All glories to Shri Guru Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudирayet Nashta Prayesha Baddeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. This morning we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19, and the last half of Text 10. Medhātithir Devala ārṣṭiṣeṇo bhṛrdvājo gautamaḥ pippalādaḥ Maitreya aurvaḥ kumbhayonir dvaipāyano bhagavān nāradaścha medhātithir Devala ārṣṭiṣeṇo bhṛrdvājo gautamaḥ pippalādaḥ Maitreya aurvaḥ kumbhayonir dvaipāyano bhagavān nāradaścha. Please chant. Matajis. Translation. From the different parts of the universe there arrived great sages like Atrir, Śaradvān, Śaradvān, ariṣṭanemir, Bhṛgu, vasiṣṭhaś, parāśaro, Vishwamitra, aṅgirāś, parāśaro, Utathya, indrapramadedhmavāhau, medhātithir, Devala, ariṣṭaseṇo, bhāradvājo, gautamaḥ, pippalādaḥ, Maitreya, aurvaḥ, kavaṣaḥ, kumbhayonir, dvaipāyano, and the great personality, Nāradaś. Report by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Medhātithir, an old sage of yore, an assembly member of the heavenly king Indradev. His son was Bhṛgu Muni, who brought up Shakuntala in the forest. He was promoted to the heavenly planet by strictly following the principles of retired life, vanaprastha. Devala, a great authority like Narad Muni and Vyasadeva. His good name is on the list of authorities mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna acknowledged Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He met Maharaj Yudhishthira after the battle of Kurukshetra and was the elder brother of Domya, the priest of the Pandava family. Like the Kshatriyas, he also allowed his daughter to select her own husband in a Swayamvara meeting. And at that ceremony, all the bachelor sons of the rishis were invited. According to some, he is not Asita Devala. Bhāradvājo. Then there's a reference in another chapter. Gautamaḥ, one of the 7 great sages of the universe. Śaradvān, Gautama, was one of his sons. Persons in the Gautama Gotra dynasty today are either his family descendants or in his disciplic succession. The Brahmanas who profess Gautama Gotra are generally family descendants, and the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas who profess Gautama Gotra are all in the line of his disciplic succession. He was the husband of the famous Ahalya, who turned into stone when Indradev, the king of heaven, molested her. Ahalya was delivered by Lord Ramchandra. Gautama was the grandfather of Kripacharya, one of the heroes of the battle of Kurukshetra. Maitreya, a great rishi of yore. He was spiritual master of Vidura and a great religious authority. He advised Dhritarashtra to keep good relations with the Pandavas. Duryodhana disagreed and thus was cursed by him. He met Vyasadeva and had religious discourses with him. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnana-anjana-shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Nama Shishtam Manomapi Sachiputramatra Sarupam Rupam Tasyaga Jamuraparim Matarim Goshtavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Madhavasam Prapto Yasya Patita Kripaya Shri Gurum Tammadasmi Vande Nantadvatashayam Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhum Nichopi Yat Prasadat Sad Bhakti Shastra Bhavataka Nityanandam Maham Nomi Sarvanandakaram Param Harinama Padam Devam Avaduta Shirominim Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vansha Kopatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhi Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavabhyo Namo Namo. What's happening here in Srimad Bhagavatam is very significant, because the sages from all over the universe have come here for the specific purpose of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And these are self-realized persons. How much more important then is it for us to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? If Narad Muni is coming, bhāradvājo, Devala, Asita, all these great sages are coming to hear Bhagavatam from the lips of Shukadeva Goswami, how much more important is it for us to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? Because this is our very means of conquest, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. There's many nice places in Bhagavatam that give us information about the importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. In the second canto, there's a nice section, 3 verses, that explain, what is that? Shandratam Shadaya Nityam Grinatasthata Cheshitam Kalena Nati Dirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hari. That if one hears Srimad Bhagavatam with great determination and enthusiasm, in due course of time the Supreme Personality of Godhead is manifest in his heart. Now someone may say, it says in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvasya Chaham Vridi, he's there, Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, Viddesher Janatishtiti, he's there in our heart. So what does it mean that the Lord becomes manifest in our heart? It means that by hearing Bhagavatam, we develop personal relationship with the Lord in our heart, just by the process of hearing, because hearing is so very powerful. So it's the qualification is with great determination. And determination means to become free from sinful life. Yesham antagatam papam janana punya karmanam tidvanda moha nirmukta bhajanti mam dridhavrataha. There are qualifications to be dridhavrata. First thing is yesham antagatam papam, to become finished, become free from sinful life. If one is implicated in sinful life, what is the question of being enthusiastic and dridhavrata, completely determined in spiritual life? Sinful life will completely distract us from that. So dridhavrata is qualified by this principle, yesham antagatam papam janana punya karmanam. one should also have some background of punya. We're distributing hundreds of thousands, millions of books. Millions of people have come to our temples, taken prasadam. Where are all the devotees? Are they standing in line to join, to accept initiation? Only the most fortunate person can come and take shelter of the Lord in the process of initiation. Brahmanda Bhagavān, Kona Bhagavān, Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai Bhaktalata Bij. Who is the fortunate person? Bhagavān Jeev. That person who gets initiation, who gets deceived in devotional service. So there needs to be some background in piety, in sukriti, punya, to become, to be dridhavrata, to be determined, fixed in devotional service. Yesha mandikatam bam janana punyam te dvandva mohinir mukta, to become free from the dualities of life. That's a big one. Who is free from the dualities of life? Only self-realized person. Brahmabhuta prasanatmana suchatina kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. Who is free from the dualities of life, heat and cold, honor and dishonor, friends and enemies? Only self-realized person. So these are qualifications to become determined, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, to become enthusiastic to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. And when that happens, something very amazing, when we take to the process of hearing Bhagavatam, the next verse explains, Pravishtakarna randrena swanam bhava saroroham dunoti shamalam Krishna salilasya yatashara. That the Lord enters our heart, how? Karna randrena, through our ear. Krishna enters our heart through our ear. People want to see God. They say, can you show me God? If there's a God, why don't you show Him to me? We see God with our ear. This is the process of understanding the Supreme Lord, is to hear about Him. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in particular, this means Kanda Randrena, Swanam Bhava Saroroham, and he sits by the process of hearing, he sits on the lotus flower of our relationship in a particular bhava, one of 5 different bhavas. And Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilasya Yatashara, that all the inauspicious things in our heart are cleansed. So this process of hearing about Krishna is very, very important. It is the foundation of our spiritual life. The first principle of hearing is that we become knowledgeable. Because if we don't have any practical knowledge of the personality of Godhead, how will we think of Him? He says, Manmana bhava mad bhakto, you think of me, become my devotee. But if we have no practical knowledge of the personality of Godhead, how will we think of Him? For example, if I said to you, please think of my brother. I have a brother, his name is Charles. But if I said, you think of my brother, can you think of him? You don't know anything about him. How can you fix your mind on someone you know nothing about? So the first principle of hearing, the first value that we get from hearing is that we become knowledgeable of the the nam, gun, rup, parika, lila, the name, the form, the pastimes, the activities, the qualities of the Lord. By hearing, we become knowledgeable. And being knowledgeable of the Lord allows us to think of Him. And this is in distinction of other inferior religious processes who simply worship God. They say God's up there, He's a uparwala, He's up there somewhere in heaven, He's sitting on a throne somewhere, and He's just keeping track of our sins and piety. And someday we get to go back to Him. We don't know what He looks like. He's a faceless God sitting on a throne somewhere. We don't understand very much about Him, but we're supposed to worship Him, and by doing that we get sense gratification. So let us go to church and worship God. Let's go to a masjid, the synagogue, the gurudwara, and worship the faceless God. But what do they know about Him? How can they have a relationship with someone you know nothing about? Because these persons don't have relationship because they've never heard Srimad Bhagavatam about the qualities of the Lord, the form of the Lord, the pastimes of the Lord's associates, the Lord's abode. They're ignorant of the characteristics of the personality of Godhead. So the first installment of mercy we get from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that we become knowledgeable. The second thing, another similar verse says, Shrinvatam Sakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Kridyantasto Abhadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. That abhadrani, inauspicious things in our heart, lust, greed, anger, envy, fear, malice, depression, all the things that afflict us and make us unhappy in this world are removed by the process of hearing. Salilasya yatashara, like the autumnal rains cleanse the muddy water. This is the effect of hearing about Krishna. It removes them once and for all. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, Maharaj Parikshit, after hearing of the hellish tortures in the lower planetary systems, became very compassionate and said, is there a system to become free from sin, to avoid being sent to hell? And Shukadeva Goswami said, Kechit, he said, Tapasa brahmacharjena samena cha damena cha tyagena satyaso cha yam yamena niyamena va. They practice celibacy, cleanliness, austerity. These things will cleanse your heart. But Maharaj Parikshit, being intelligent devotee, responded that I think this, manye kunjara sochavat, I think that this process is just like the bathing of an elephant. To accept some austerity, to become free, to accept cleanliness and study of Vedas and tapasya and charity and study of Shastra. These are all very good, but it doesn't remove the cause of sinful life. It doesn't root out, it doesn't clean the heart from abhadrani. So then Shukadeva Goswami spoke this verse, Kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agam dunvanti karsneya niharam iva baskara. That some fortunate people, some few people, Kechit, take to the process of Kevala Bhakti. And Kevala Bhakti is the only means by which the heart can actually be cleansed. An example was given that in a forest fire, the forest is decimated, is reduced to ashes. But because the root remains, as soon as the rains come, the forest grows back because the root is still there. So one can become free from the effects of sinful life, but because the desire for sinful life has not been removed from the core of the heart, in due course of time, everything grows back. So the only process, agam dunvansti kartsneya, to remove the desire for sinful life from the heart is the only alternative to become free once and for all from sinful life. And the example is given of fog, dun. Dun means the fog. In the month of December, we see here in Mayapur also very foggy mornings, but as soon as the sun comes up, the fog is immediately dissipated. So in the same way, when we hear about Krishna, the fog of material life, of the desire for sense gratification is removed from the heart. This is the second installment of mercy we get from hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, that the heart is cleansed. Nitya siddha Krishna prema sadhya kavanai shravanadi shuddha chitte koreya udoy. That by hearing about Krishna, the heart is purified, the chitta, the consciousness, the heart is purified, and love of God arises automatically, spontaneously. Srila Prabhupada said this hundreds of times. Someone wrote a book whether love of God is dormant in our heart, whether it is inherent or inherited. We should not mistake that our love of God, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, is inherent. It's not something we get, it's kabunai, it's not something we get from outside of ourselves, it's present within our heart. And it has to be awakened by the process of hearing. Srila Prabhupada said this hundreds of times. So someone may have a different opinion, that's fine, but we're followers of Srila Prabhupada, who said hundreds of times the process of spiritual life means to revive Krishna consciousness, to awaken Krishna consciousness that is dormant within our heart, kabunoi. And the process is shravanadi, to hear about Krishna that destroys all sinful desires within the heart. So this is the second manifestation of hearing about Krishna. Third, and most important, is that By hearing about Krishna, we attract Krishna's attention. He becomes interested. Oh, my devotee, this person, out of millions of living beings, out of infinite, unlimited numbers of living beings, wants to hear about me. And when he sees that, he takes personal interest in a devotee's life. He takes personal interest to pick that devotee up out of the ocean of material life. And this is perhaps the most important installment of hearing about Krishna. So this Bhagavatam, which gives us facility to hear about Krishna, was given by the great sage Vyasadeva for the upliftment of human society. Anartopasamam sakshat bhakti yogam adhoksaje lokasya janato vidvams chakre sattvata samhitam. That the miseries of human society are also superfluous. We're not meant to suffer in this world. These struggles, the anxieties, the stress of this life is superfluous to our very self. But people don't understand that. They think this is just life. You know, the house burns down. Well, that's just life. What can be done? Someone dies, that's life. There's a car accident, that's life. The stock market crashes, well, that's life. But it's not life. People take it as life. They take it as a suffering that is inherent to our existence. But it's not meant to be like that. It's anartha. It's unwanted thing. And the solution is to be linked to the process of bhakti yoga. To facilitate that, the great sage, Lord comes himself as Veda Vyas to give this Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti yoga lokasya janato vidvams chakre sattvasa samhitam. To give this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam that uplifts us and gives us relationship with the Lord. Next verse says, Yasyam vai shoyamanayam Krishna parama purishe bhaktir upadyate pumsa shoka moha bhayapaha. And this is the wonderful effect by hearing a Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhaktir utpadyate pumsa. That bhakti arises within the heart of the living being. Bhakti has no cause but bhakti. But hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is bhakti in itself. The process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is bhakti. So hearing Bhagavatam causes bhakti to arise within our heart, and what is the effect of that? Shoka moha bhayapaha. That lamentation, fear, and illusion are all removed from the heart. People lament because of attachment to this material world. That they spend their life accumulating the objects of sense gratification, the nice home, the car, the position in society, the bank balance, the husband, the wife, the children, the vacation home. They spend their whole life for these insignificant things. And when they lose something, which inevitably must happen by the influence of time, when they lose something, then they simply cry. That why me? Why has this happened to me? Because they don't understand that this is the very nature of the material experience. So lamentation is removed by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Moha, illusion, is removed by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is our greatest illusion? That I am a product of matter. That I am hot, I am cold, I am thirsty, I am greedy, I am lusty, I am envious, I am this, I am that. These are all upadis. And the first proposition of bhakti means sarvupadi vinirmuktam tatparatena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchate. To become from upadis, designations, identification with the body, identification with the lump of matter, of blood and fat and skin and hair and tendons and brain and heart and lung and stomach and intestines, liver, pancreas, spleen. What part of that is the self? We're completely aloof from all of that. But life's greatest illusion is to identify with this gross material body and with the subtle mind. Identification with the gross material body is easier to overcome because one can simply reflect, what part of this is me? We say it is my hand, but it's not me hand, it's my hand, it's my body, but it's not me. But to break identification with the mind is much more difficult because the mind is subtle energy and all the misidentifications actually live in the mind. Where does lust live? In the mind. Where does greed live? Envy, fear, lamentation, all these things live in the mind. But this is broken when bhakti arises. Bhaktir utpadyate pumsa arises in the heart of the living being. And fear, similarly. We become fearless because we understand that we don't die, and that can be experienced also. That as the consciousness is eternal and the body is temporary, when we reflect on that, we can directly experience that. And there are many people that have experienced, we call it NDE, near-death experience. A member of one of our Bhakti Vriksha groups, sister, had a near-death experience. He explained this to our Bhakti Vriksha group. She was in the hospital for some operation, lying on the operating table, and the surgeon mistakenly severed an artery, and she bled to death. She left her body, and she was witnessing the whole scene of the surgeons standing around discussing amongst themselves, how are we going to explain this to the family? The family standing outside the door, what are we going to say to them? So they made up some story. Well, as you know, things happened. There was some anomaly in the surgical procedure, and things happened. Okay, you go outside and tell the family there's nothing we could do. This is what happened. So that the soul and the subtle body, the lady in her subtle body is witnessing the whole scene, hovering over her own body, hearing every word, seeing every scene, and witnessing the whole experience. And then she came back to her body. Surprise, surprise, she came back to her body, and after she recovered, she explained the whole situation to the family. This is what actually happened. They botched the operation, and they almost killed me. And they made up some story about what happened. So this story was related to us. This is called near-death experience, where a person directly experiences the differentiation between the subtle body, the soul, and the gross material body. Now, not everyone is so fortunate to have such a direct experience, but we can understand from Shastra the same thing. So hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhaktir Utpadyate Pumsam Shoka Moha Bhayapaha. Next verse says, Dotatma Purusha Krishna Padamulam Namunchati Mukta Sarvapari Kalesha Panta Swasharanam Yata. The one who has this experience of the awakening of bhakti in his heart, Krishna Parama Purushe, having relationship with Parama Purush, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which is in itself most extraordinary thing, that the infinitesimal jiva, Keshaga Shatabhagasa Shatada Kalpitasya Cha, 1/10,000th the size of a tip of a hair, can have loving relationship with the infinite Lord, the infinitesimal soul, can have personal, intimate, personal relationship with the Supreme Lord. This is inconceivable. This is the power of bhakti. This is the power of bhakti. That we can have relationship with God. You can live with Him. You can eat with Him. You can be embraced by Him. You can dance with Him. You can play with Him. This is the power of bhakti. In this world, the greater authority a person has, the harder it is to contact them. For example, can you just walk into Prime Minister Narendra Modi's office and say, Narendra, why don't you and me, let's go have lunch? Is it possible? Can you go walk into his office? Can you walk into Mamata Banerjee's office and say, Mamata ji, let's go have masala dosa? Impossible. But Krishna, the Supreme, and they're ordinary persons, but Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, extends Himself to us becomes controlled by the love of the jiva. He becomes parāśaro, the servant of his devotee, Arjuna. Yashoda Maya says to Nanda Baba, says to Yashoda Maya, what can your Krishna do? He's just a little boy, what can you do? She says, no, Krishna, go get your father's shoes. So Krishna is taking his father's shoes on his head, and he's walking and taking his shoes, presenting them to Nanda Baba. Here are your shoes, father. He becomes a servant of his devotee. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would personally garland the devotees, offer chandan to them, and as the supreme indwelling super soul would serve them that particular prasadam that was most dear to them. He'd serve all the devotees prasadam, but knowing as the indwelling Paramatma what type of prasadam was most dear to every individual devotee, would serve that prasadam. Take more sweet. No, and you take more pungent. You take more bitter. Knowing what was dear to the devotee. Lord becomes servant. The inconceivable, infinite Lord becomes a servant to the infinitesimal bhakta by bhakti. So Krishna Parama Purusha, we develop relationship with this person. And mukta sarva pariklesha, we become free from all klesha, all miseries. Adhyatmik klesha, adibhotik klesha, adidaivaka klesha. We're free from all of those by the process of bhakti. When we become dotatma, dotatma means purified soul. When we actually become advanced in spiritual life, dotatma, Purusha Krishna. And panta swasharanam yata. This means, just like the Bhagavatam is giving an example of a traveler who is going to the mountains, going to the rivers, going to the fields, trying to accumulate some wealth, chasing money, chasing prosperity, struggling, sacrificing, suffering. But when he comes home, he feels happy, relieved that I've come home to Krishna. So dotat mahapur, padamulam namunchati. Padamulam namunchati means when we become purified, we'll never give up our relationship with Krishna. Impossible. Sometimes in the history of our movement we see persons who were considered to be very great devotees leave Krishna consciousness. And sometimes in bizarre ways. But what does this mean? That they never had a relationship with Krishna. Because padamulam namunchati, dotatma purusha Krishna, padamulam namunchati, one who is actually purified, one who has actually made progress in spiritual life, made advancement in Krishna consciousness, he'll never give up the lotus feet of Krishna. And coming to Krishna consciousness is like coming home. So hearing Krishna Leela in Srimad Bhagavatam is most relishable in the association of devotees. Satam prasangat mama virya samvido bhavanti vitkarna rasayana prava. Tajdoshana rashtavavarkavartmane shraddharatir bhaktir anukramishati. How does bhakti come? It comes gradually. Shraddha bhaktir anukramishati. Kramishati means kramena, step by step, not automatically. You can't snap your fingers and say, now from tomorrow, I'm done with lust, I'm done with greed, I'm done with envy, all the things that afflict my mind and heart, I give them up from tomorrow. Is it so easy? It's not easy at all. The process of bhakti is gradual, kramena, step by step. And this is also significant, that we shouldn't think that we can cross over the plateau of spiritual life known as anartha-nivritti. When we first come to spiritual life, actually we can graph it if we make a graph. X-axis and Y-axis. X-axis time, Y-axis progress in spiritual life. We come to spiritual life and spirit, this is so nice, we meet devotees. Ado Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Anartha, Bhajana Kriya, we get initiated. But then the plateau of spiritual life is when we have to deal with lust, deal with envy, deal with fear, deal with illusion, deal with all the things that separate us from Krishna consciousness, from our relationship with Krishna. So those things are removed kramishati, step by step. And this is the meaning of sahajiya mentality, that I can jump over lust and greed and anger and fear and envy. I don't need to deal, that's all for neophytes. And I just want to love Krishna. I want to be in bhav. But what do we find these people are doing? Some godbrothers and I had personal experience of this. In 1980, I think it was. We were invited to spend the night at Radhakund. There was one Radhakund Babaji who was very friendly to ISKCON devotees. His name was Kashmiri Krishnadas, I think. He was from Kashmir, and he would take the devotees on Parakrama and show all the different places of pilgrimage. So it was getting late, so he said, why don't you stay? So he gave us blankets, and 3 of us stayed on the top of the roof of one ashram. The next morning we came down, and here's the Babaji in his ashram, staying with 5 different women. This is not Babaji life. Everything that Srila Prabhupada described was right in front of our eyes. That doesn't mean that every person living in Radhakund practicing Krishna consciousness is a deviant. I'm not saying that. But it's prevalent in Radhakund, where they talk high talk of Radha Bhav, Gopi Bhav, Manjari Bhav, Sakhi Bhav, but they're not practicing the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. The Vidhi Bhakti, the rules and regulations. They want to skip over that, skip over the process of dealing with lust, dealing with anger, fear, and envy. It can't be skipped over. Kramena, kramishati, step by step we make progress, and you can't jump from one and skip over to the next. Any more they can jump from second standard education to PhD. Can you just jump from second standard education to PhD? Impossible. So impossible to jump prematurely. The higher principles of Krishna consciousness are our destination. We want this. This is our prayojana. We want bhava. We want prema. But we have to pay the price for that also. And the system is to hear in the association of devotees. Satam satangak mama virya sambido. To hear in the association of satam, the devotees. To hear what? Mama virya sambido, the heroic activities of the personality of Godhead. How Krishna is lifting Govardhan Hill. He's killing demons. He's dancing with gopis. He's playing with his friends. There's these heroic activities of the personality of Godhead. Hearing those in association of devotees becomes relishable, because only devotees can relish activities of the Lord. Non-devotee will think they're simply fairy tales. That a 7-year-old boy lifted a mountain, this is impossible. But let them understand, who is that 7-year-old boy? Aham sarvasya prabhavo matas sarvam pravajite iti matva bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanditaha. Let them understand that that 7-year-old boy is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if he can create millions of universes, Shristi sthiti pralaya sadhana shaktireva chayava yasya bhavanani vibharti durga chayeva yasya bhavanani vibharti durga, then Durga is working under his direction. Yakaranarnava jale bhajati smayoga nidramananta jagadanda saroma kupa adhara shaktim avalambya param samurtim govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. That from a portion of that little 7-year-old boy, millions of universes are coming. So let them understand who is that little boy. And then appreciate how he's lifting a hill. He's lifting Giri Govardhan simply to please and protect his devotees. And holding it over the Brajvasis. They can't even, they're seeing Krishna hold Govardhan Hill. But they can't even understand that here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda is telling Krishna, why don't you, the mountain is shaking, why don't you change to your other hand? And the cowherd boys are lifting their sticks to help Krishna. Let me help Krishna. The mountain is shaking. Let me help him. They can't conceive that here is God holding a huge mountain on one hand, on the little finger of one hand. But why is the mountain shaking? Because Krishna is looking at the beauty of the gopis and feeling intoxicated by their beauty. The mountain is shaking. So these are wonderful leelas that can only be appreciated by devotees. Satam, satam, mamavi, and they become relishable. By hearing them, we make progress in spiritual life. We give up lust, we give up greed, we give up envy, cleansing those things from the core of our heart. This is the process. The foundation of our spiritual life is to hear and chant about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these blessings come to us. We become knowledgeable by the process of hearing. We cleanse our heart once and for all, not temporarily, by some austerity, by some vrata, some vow, some donation, dhan, swadhyaya, study of Shastra, tirtha yatra, holy bath. These things can purify one temporarily, but not permanently. Not permanently. Permanent cleansing of the heart takes place by this process of hearing. The mama virya samvido, the auspicious, heroic activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and making that our prayojana, to enter into that lila. We're not just interested in the no of spiritual life. Don't do this, don't do that. This is sinful, this is pious. We have to get beyond that duality and enter into the understanding that what is our prayojana? What do we want to do? What is our goal? What is our highest aspiration? We want to enter into the Krishna Lila. And that's possible by this process. Sometimes devotees say, they ask questions, "Oh Prabhu, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 15 years, for 20 years, but I'm not getting a taste. Why am I not getting a taste?" Many reasons. First thing is, we don't understand what is our prayojana. If we understand what is possible, what is the potentiality of our process of Krishna Bhakti, if we understand the potential that we can enter into Krishna Lila by this process, that's exciting. But typically devotees become mindless in their execution of devotional service. They're standing in Mangalarti, they're singing the song, but their mind is somewhere else. Utathya bhaktam shanijunjatopi vande guroshi charanaravinda. What does it mean? Utathya bhaktam shanijunjatopi. You ask people, what does it mean? What does it mean? We sing this song, Mahaprasadi Govinde Namarvamani Vaishnavi Swabhapanyapatam Rajan Vishvaso Naiva Chaite. You ask the devotee, what does it mean? The devotee say, oh, it means we're going to eat. There's meaning, there's a deep meaning to this. That someone who has no faith, who has swalpa punyam, has no appreciation for spiritual life. So we need to be mindful in our process of Krishna consciousness. When we're standing in kirtan, hearing, because we're not Sanskrit speakers, we're not Bengali speakers, most of us, we have to fix our mind on what are we singing. Nikunjayono ratikeli siddhai dayalivya juktir apekshaniya. What does it mean? Are we there meditating on the meaning? Are we thinking about, when am I going to get my japa done? I have this to do today, I have that to do. Why did that devotee treat me like this? Different issues in our life. We're not present, we're not mindful. We're not present. We're not absorbed in the process. We're not absorbed in the process of chanting our japa. Devotees wonder, why am I not getting taste for chanting japa? Because you're not present in japa. Sometimes we hear, oh, just hear. Prabhupada said no. We should fix our mind on Krishna, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's lila, Krishna's beauty, Krishna's mercy, Krishna's power, His unlimited power, His creative power. Fix our mind on all the different aspects of Krishna. That is japa. Yato yato nischalati manas chanchalam astiram tatsastito nayam yaitat atmaneva vashamnaya. To whatever and wherever your mind wanders, due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one should bring it back under the control of the self. This is japa. Bringing it back under control of the self means to fix the mind on the present, to be mindful. I'm chanting whose name? I'm chanting God's name, Krishna's name. Who? Shyam Sundar, Girivaradhari, Yashumati Nandana, Brajabaranagara, Gokula Ranjana Kana. Remember the pastimes of Krishna. Bring your mind to Krishna. Then we'll not feel, why am I not getting a taste? Why am I stuck in a rut? Why am I not feeling I'm making progress in Krishna consciousness? Because we're not hearing properly. We're not hearing properly. We take reading Srimad Bhagavatam to be a recreational activity. We should bring our mind to Bhagavatam, to see within our mind the assembly of sages, and Shukadev Goswami sitting on a raised platform, and Maharaj Parikshit offering his obeisances to Shukadev, who appears on the scene accompanied by so many women and young children teasing him and harassing him. And they become very surprised when in the association of great sages, the greatest sages of the universe, they all say, you please sit higher. You please teach us. And they fall away in fear. We should bring our mind to the scene of Bhagavatam. One of my godbrothers was asking one very, very senior Vaishnava. He was saying, when you hear Srimad Bhagavatam, what do you experience? He says, when I hear Srimad Bhagavatam, I see it, I hear it, I taste it, I smell it. This is Bhagavatam. Not just recreationally reading, getting the storyline, but to enter into the pastimes of Bhagavatam, and ultimately to enter into Leela of Bhagavatam by our progress in spiritual life. To enter into Krishna Leela. This is our prayojana. And if we understand that this is possible in this lifetime, it's within our grasp, within this lifetime. Chaktva deham punarjanma, naiti mameti sorjana. That we can go back to Krishna and enter Leela with Krishna. See Krishna. Bhaktya tanannaya shakya hambidam vidorjana gyatum drashtum chatattvina pravishtum cha parantapa. By bhakti, by ananya bhakti, gyatum, Krishna says, you can know me. Drashtum, you can see me eye to eye and face to face on the strength of ananya bhakti. If we contemplate that, this is very exciting. This is very encouraging. We're very enthusing. We become utsaha, very enthused in Krishna bhakti. When we contemplate the possibility, the potentiality of the process of sadhana that begins hearing about Krishna. So I tried to present some different evidences from Srimad Bhagavatam about the importance of hearing, and to emphasize the quality of hearing. Not recreational hearing, not distracted hearing. Sometimes we see devotees, they have one hand in their bead bag and they have their mobile phone, they're Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Ram, Krishna Ram. You can chant Krishna's name for millions of years like that, and you'll never get Krishna. You'll never get a taste for holy name. Put your mobile phone away, turn off the internet, turn off the TV if you have one, get rid of your TV if you have one, and hear Krishna's name. And when you sit to read Bhagavatam, don't do anything else. Bring your mind to Bhagavatam, and in this way get a taste for hearing about Krishna, and allow that sound, kana randrena, swanam bhava saroham, allow it to enter your ear and sit on the lotus flower of your loving relationship with God. And once and for all, kick out lust, greed, anger, envy, and awaken. Bhaktir utpadyate pumsa. Let bhakti awaken, love of God awaken in your heart. This is our process of hearing. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Does anyone have any comment or question? Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you for the very nice class. In the due course, you explained about some devotees they left in between because they could not establish their relationship with Krishna. So how can I understand that whether I have made my relationship with Krishna or not? How to check that? Okay.
But according to we can measure our progress in many ways. I think the most important way is Govinda Virahename. Do you feel separation from Krishna? Or do you feel happy in life? You've got a nice, because ashram life is very life is very nice, isn't it? It's very nice. It's comfortable. You do a little service and you just sit down and eat 3 times a day. People do pranam, especially brahmacharis. We should do pranam to brahmacharis, sannyasis, tyagis. It's a nice life. They give you dakshina. Please give class. Please bless me, Prabhu. It's a nice life. But do we feel separation from Krishna? We feel separation from many things in this world. From good food, from respect, from prestige, from sense gratification, from your mobile phone. If you misplace your mobile phone, my God, my phone. Where did I put my phone? All my pictures, all my contacts, my phone. Where's my phone? Mobile phone virahename. But do we feel separation from Krishna? Do we feel detachment from the desire for sense gratification? Or are we constantly struggling? I want to do this, no I shouldn't. I want to do it, no I shouldn't, back and forth. But when we actually have relationship, dotatma means purified soul. Dotatma Purusha Krishna Paramulam Namunchati. He'll never give up the lotus feet of Krishna because he's actually purified. And purification is a process. So before a person becomes completely purified, he's subject to fall down. We all are subject to fall down. They asked Srila Prabhupada, when you're standing in front of the deities with folded hands, what are you praying? He said, I am praying to not fall into Maya. What is our position? Mama Maya Duratyaya. Anyone can fall at any time. But if we're begging shelter, if we're begging Krishna, I only want you, then he will protect us. But if we take it whimsically, if we take it, the spiritual life is just a picnic, it's the most serious thing. It is a picnic. It's kevala ananda kanda. It's full of happiness. But it's the most serious thing also. We have to be detached from this world because there's no guarantee. This whole Bhagavatam was spoken, why? Mriyamananam. Because we're all on the verge of death. And if we don't understand that, we don't understand Bhagavatam. So people fall because we think we would consider them very advanced in spiritual life. They lead a nice kirtan, they give a great class, they're charismatic, they're fun to be with, the next thing you know, where did so-and-so go? Whereabouts unknown. So Maya is always chasing us. She's always there. Spiritual life is razor's edge. You lean this way, Krishna. Lean this way, Maya. So we should be very serious to hear, keep association with devotees, and Mriyamananam know that this day may be your last day. There's no guarantee that we see next sunrise. This is the nature of this world. Don't forget. Then we'll always be with Krishna. So I've been instructed several times to end on time. It's 1 minute after 9. So in respect to the authorities who manage this program, I'll end class here. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.